It was July 4th, 1976. While America was celebrating its 200th birthday with fireworks and parades, halfway across the world, in the heart of Africa, 102 hostages sat in a crumbling airport terminal surrounded by armed hijackers, waiting to die. They were Jewish passengers, men, women, elderly people, children, pulled off a hijacked Air France plane and flown to Uganda, a country ruled by a madman who openly supported their captors. And 2,500 miles away, in Tel Aviv, a group of Israeli commanders were staring at a map, asking an impossible question. Can we fly to Uganda, storm the terminal, rescue every single hostage, and get out alive? What happened next became one of the most legendary military operations in history. A mission so bold, so precisely executed, that it still shocks military experts today. This is Operation Entebbe. It started as an ordinary morning at Athens Airport. Air France Flight 139 was boarding, a routine trip from Tel Aviv to Paris with a stop in Athens. 248 passengers, crew of 12. Nobody expected what was about to happen. Shortly after takeoff from Athens, 4 hijackers stood up. 2 were members of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, a radical Palestinian militant group. The other 2 were from the German revolutionary cells. Yes, German left-wing terrorists who had allied themselves with Palestinian militants. They seized the plane at gunpoint. The pilot was ordered to change course, first to Benghazi, Libya, for refueling, then south, deep into Africa. Their destination, Entebbe International Airport, Uganda. Uganda in 1976 was ruled by Idi Amin, one of the most brutal and unpredictable dictators of the 20th century. A man who had declared himself president for life, lord of all the beasts of the earth, and had even claimed he deserved the Victoria Cross for bravery. Idi Amin not only welcomed the hijackers, he came to meet them personally, shook their hands, praised their operation. He sent his own Ugandan soldiers to guard the terminal alongside the hijackers. The hostages were now prisoners of 2 governments. In the terminal, the hijackers immediately did something that horrified the world. They separated the hostages. Jewish passengers and Israeli citizens were moved to one room. All others were eventually released and flown to freedom. Only the Jews were kept. This was no longer just a hijacking. It had become a specifically anti-Semitic hostage situation. In an airport in the middle of Africa, 2,500 miles from Israel, protected by an entire country's military. The hijackers issued their demands. Release 53 Palestinian and pro-Palestinian militants held in prisons in Israel, France, Germany, and other countries. The deadline? July 1st. If the demands were not met, the hostages would be killed. Back in Israel, Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin faced an agonizing choice. Israel had a long-standing policy: we do not negotiate with terrorists. But these were Israeli civilians, including Holocaust survivors who still had numbers tattooed on their arms, now being separated by race again, in an African airport, by German terrorists. The psychological weight of that image broke something inside the Israeli cabinet. They needed another way. The Israeli military was already thinking about a rescue, but the obstacles were almost laughable in their severity. Entebbe Airport was 2,500 miles away. That's further than flying from Karachi to Moscow. Any Israeli aircraft flying over multiple African nations would be detected. Uganda had a military of its own. The terminal layout was unknown, and the number of guards, their positions, their weapons, all of it was a mystery. General Dan Shomron was given the task of planning the operation. He brought in Sayeret Matkal, Israel's most elite special forces unit. the same unit that had conducted countless covert operations. Their commander for this mission would be Lieutenant Colonel Yonatan Netanyahu, the older brother of a man who would one day become Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. The planning began immediately, and the first thing they needed was intelligence. How did they get it? From the released hostages. As non-Jewish passengers were freed and flown back to Europe, Israeli intelligence officers were waiting at the airports. They interviewed every single person, drew sketches of the terminal, mapped where the guards stood, counted weapons, noted shift patterns. Then came an extraordinary piece of luck. An Israeli construction company had actually built parts of the old Entebbe terminal. The original blueprints still existed in Israel. Within 48 hours, the Israeli military had constructed a full-scale replica of the terminal in a base in southern Israel. Commandos began rehearsing the raid, again and again, until every man knew exactly where to go, what door to breach, which corner to clear. One of the most brilliant tactical details of the plan, Idi Amin was known to drive a black Mercedes-Benz, the same model used by heads of state across Africa. Israeli planners realized that if their assault team arrived in a black Mercedes, the Ugandan guards might assume it was Idi Amin arriving for another visit and delay their response by critical seconds. They sourced a black Mercedes. They dressed commandos in Ugandan military uniforms. The psychological deception was built into the very first moment of the assault. On the evening of July 3rd, Prime Minister Rabin gave the order. 4 Hercules C-130 transport aircraft would fly from Israel, low altitude to avoid radar, refuel secretly in Kenya, whose government quietly cooperated, and land at Entebbe in the middle of the night. The entire rescue force, fewer than 200 soldiers, against an airport guarded by Ugandan troops, in a foreign country, with 102 hostage lives on the line. The operation was given a code name, Operation Thunderbolt, later renamed in honor of its fallen commander, Operation Jonathan. The 4 C-130C flew in darkness, hugging the terrain to stay below radar coverage across multiple countries. No lights, radio silence. Inside the aircraft, the commandos sat in full gear, weapons ready, faces painted, heartbeats controlled. At 11:01 p.m. local time, the first Hercules touched down at Entebbe. The runway lights were on. They had not been alerted. The aircraft taxied to a stop, and the rear ramp dropped. Out rolled the black Mercedes, followed by 2 Land Rovers. The convoy drove slowly toward the terminal, exactly as Idi Amin's motorcade would. 2 Ugandan sentries approached the vehicle. One raised his weapon. A commando shot him with a silenced pistol. The other sentry ran. Another commando fired. But the shots had made sound. The deception was over. Lieutenant Colonel Yonatan Netanyahu gave the order. The commandos surged forward, sprinting toward the terminal entrance. They burst through the doors. Inside, the hostages were terrified. They had heard the shots outside. Then the doors exploded open, and men in black uniforms rushed in. The lead commandos shouted in Hebrew, get down, Israeli army, get down on the floor!" In the chaos, a 19-year-old French-Israeli passenger named Jean-Jacques Mimouni stood up. One of the Israeli commandos, thinking he was a terrorist, shot him. He died. It was the tragic, unavoidable cost of war in a dark room with no time to hesitate. The actual hijackers in the main hall were killed within the first 90 seconds. All 4 were dead. The remaining Ugandan soldiers outside engaged the Israeli forces, but were outgunned and outmaneuvered by the rehearsed precision of Sayeret Matkal. As the hostages were being rushed toward the aircraft, Lieutenant Colonel Yonatan Netanyahu was moving along the outside of the terminal building, coordinating the operation. A Ugandan sniper positioned in the control tower fired a single shot. It struck Netanyahu in the back. He was carried to the aircraft by his men. He died before they could reach medical help. He was 30 years old, the only Israeli commando killed in the raid. The entire raid inside the terminal lasted approximately 30 minutes. 102 hostages were loaded onto the aircraft. 3 hostages had been killed in the crossfire, including one who had been taken to a Ugandan hospital earlier and was subsequently murdered by Ugandan soldiers when the raid began. As the Hercules aircraft lifted off into the African night, Israeli commandos also destroyed 11 Ugandan MiG fighter jets parked on the runway, ensuring Uganda had no aircraft to pursue them. The planes flew to Nairobi, Kenya, where medical teams were waiting. The wounded were treated. Then they flew home to Israel. When the aircraft landed at Ben Gurion Airport on the morning of July 4th, the entire country erupted. Thousands of people were waiting, crying, cheering, embracing the hostages who walked off the planes. 102 people had been rescued from 2,500 miles away in one night by fewer than 200 soldiers, with the loss of only one commando.
Operation Entebbe changed the world's understanding of what a special forces unit could do. It proved that bold planning, precise intelligence, and relentless rehearsal could achieve the seemingly impossible. It inspired counterterrorism doctrines in America, Britain, Germany, and dozens of other countries. The German GSG-9 unit, formed after the Munich massacre, studied Entebbe closely when they executed their own successful hostage rescue the following year. Yonatan Netanyahu became a national hero in Israel. His name was given to the operation. His younger brother, Benjamin, would carry his memory for the rest of his political life. And the hostages, most of them elderly, many of them Holocaust survivors, walked off those planes, having survived something that the entire world had assumed was impossible. In 90 seconds of controlled violence, Israel sent a message that echoed across every intelligence agency, every terrorist organization, and every government on earth. If you take our people, we will come for them, no matter where, no matter how far.
If this story moved you, if you felt the weight of those 102 lives and the courage of the men who went to save them, hit that like button and subscribe to War and Military History. Every week, we bring you the real stories behind the battles that shaped our world. The full picture, the human cost, the truth behind the headlines. We'll see you in the next one.